whether they should have been counted for Mr. Howard, to the extent that there are ballots very typical of those you've seen at previous appeals that have two marks on them, one which has been construed by the Secretary of State as a cancellation mark and the other one as the vote. There are other candidates at issue. So even were Mr. Howard here today, well, we believe it's very important that every vote be properly counted. This would not be a circumstance, as we understand it, where Mr. Howard would be pointing to any of those ballots and saying they should be counted for him. We can only assume his intention was to say we counted them for one candidate and they should have been counted for a different candidate, but not for him. And while we think an appeal is certainly in order, where a candidate believes that ballots should have been counted for him that were not, again, normally we are here in these circumstances where there is some question as to the will of the voters, as to who won the election. And in this case, Mr. Howard had 44 votes as the election results were calculated on election night, and 43 votes as they were calculated at the end of the recount, as a result of the changes brought by the recount, and is nowhere even in the ballpark of being someone who, even were to rule on all of the 15 ballots that were protested, would make him the winner. So it's a somewhat unusual circumstance to present. We have concerns with whether someone who's not a competitive candidate should be able to tie up all the ballots in the process by doing a protest and, in effect, try to seek a second recount by bringing all those before the commission. And it's another reason we believe that the commission should properly dismiss this appeal. And finally, I'll be very brief, as we have laid out on page 3 of the pleading under Roman numeral 2. Mr. Howard has raised a number of issues that, as I understand them, are issues about how New Hampshire conducts its election. In fact, his prayer for relief, what he's requested you to do is to, one, disclaim an opinion of accuracy of the count. Well, that's not really part of your process under any circumstance. You would merely determine whether particular ballots were counted the right candidate and adjust the total numbers based on your determinations if any adjustment was warranted. And furthermore, he's asking you to simply impose changes on our system of voting in New Hampshire, most of which are in the purview of the legislature. And I think the proper venue for Mr. Howard or anyone like-minded is to raise these issues with the legislature. Some of them are familiar to me because I've been able to participate in discussions with election law committee members and in testifying on bills. Some of these have been thought about in different variations with what's there. So I think perhaps with a lack of understanding of how this system works, really his 8 individual errors that he's trying to report and essentially asking us to change the way we conduct elections in the state, he's not in the right venue for that. You are not the right commission to hear that. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions from the committee?
Yes. Attorney Fitch, having read the appeal of Mr. Howard and having read the motion to dismiss, subject to hearing some contrary evidence from somebody who may testify subsequent to you, I think at this point I tend to agree with you. But there is one thing that bothers me in your motion to dismiss, and that is item number 2 on page 3. Item number 2 on page 3 says, machine failures render equipment non-compliant with the Help America Vote Act regulations. I look at that, and I look at 665-9A, and doesn't that at least give us the color of jurisdiction?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I think that with the right matter before you, the answer is yes. This is an appeal of a recount. The recount were of paper ballots marked by voters. All issues that relate to machines and whether they work well or poorly or accurate or inaccurate are moot as to the recount because machines played no part in the recount. Every ballot was counted by a human being in a circumstance where Mr. Howard and every other candidate on the ballot had a chance directly or through a representative to look at how every ballot was being counted by a human being. So had Mr. Howard petitioned the commission to review its certification of the voting equipment that's used in New Hampshire, then you might well properly entertain submission of evidence that might cause you to reconsider your certification of equipment in New Hampshire. Were that to happen, however, it would be appropriate to give notice to people that didn't get notice of this hearing. And we certainly would have brought people here, had the manufacturer and other folks here to be available to answer questions or provide you with information that we haven't done, because that's not what is properly before the commission. And there are other groups, I expect the Town Clerks Association and others, who have a very great deal of experience with machines and a vested interest in their certification, who also would want to appear and provide information to you if you considered that.
Want to entertain a motion?
Yeah. Seeing no other questions at this time, you entertain a motion. Is there anybody in the audience who wants to testify at this time on the motion to dismiss? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion.
I make a motion to grant the motion to dismiss, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Here we have a first and second. Any discussion?
Since I did raise a question with Attorney Fitch, I'm going to vote for the motion to dismiss, and the issue that brings a color of complaint under the Help America Vote Act may have been sufficient to give us jurisdiction, but in reading the appeal of Mr. Howard, it is my view that he doesn't tie any error statistically into what occurred in New Hampshire. He speaks in a generic sense. And without something that is specifically tied to the state of New Hampshire, and without hearing from any witness indicating that there was a problem in the state of New Hampshire, then I'm going to support the motion to dismiss.
Also, after reviewing the ballots, I don't, as the Secretary of State's office revealed also, there is no checks on any of these, even close to Mr. Howard's name. So there's no evidence really in the ballots that were cast that there's any question whether they were for Mr. Howard or against him. Seeing none, take a vote at this time. Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner McGurk?
Yes.
Commissioner Chandler?
Yes.
Commissioner Dupree?
Yes.
And Chair votes yes.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Thank you for attending.
See you.
Because their job is really to decide how to
Serious. You did a good job.
You fill that notice up?
What's your fact actually?
Yeah. Thank you very much for doing what you're doing. It's a good fight.
It's a good fight, and it ain't over yet.
Nice to hear that. Nice job.